Hello and welcome to another edition of Droppin Baums with me, Corey Baumeister. As always, with the lovely folks here at TCGplayer.com. So today I'm playing a deck that I have loved historically more than any deck. It has been a deck that has had more personal implications to my Magic career than I think any deck. It was my first Pro Tour deck back in 2008 at Pro Tour Hollywood. I played Blue-Black Faeries when it was in Standard with Ancestral Recall, Bitter Blossom, all the Counterspell Fairies, Cryptic Command still. The deck was amazing, and I just cannot wait to be picking this deck up again. Blue-Black Faeries in the state of Modern, we think of now as usually kind of insanity. Okay, there's so many fast, degenerate strategies that are in the makings right now that make this deck very, very bad. So why am I picking this up, you would think? Well, I saw Shota Yasoka play this deck in the last mocks to a 6-2 record, and I started to think, why is this deck coming back? Why is it becoming something that may be worth re-exploring again? And I thought of the modern metagame and the direction it's kind of heading in. You're starting to see a rise of like Jeskai control, fair decks like Abzan, you're starting to see green-white Value Town. Of course, you're still going to see, Affinity, Hollow Ones, Burn, all this stuff. Like, Modern is such a huge, diverse format that any given week, it could be any different kind of format. But right now, with the rise of control decks trying to take advantage of these creature-based strategies like Humans and Hollow One, you're starting to see that this may be the counter to that deck. This Faeries has historically and still does to this day crush control. When you can play a bunch of hand disruption spell plus a 2-mana enchantment that effectively wins you the game over a course of a few turns, along with counter spells of your own, it becomes very, very difficult for control decks to deal with. This deck really reminds me of, in Standard, Blue-Black midrange. It has those problems against hyper-aggressive decks. Like, it has big problems against those. But if you can manage to squeak out some of those matchups and play against more control decks and stuff, this deck has a huge advantage when it comes to that. Especially because this deck has new toys than it did in the past in the form of Fatal Push. Jace the Mind Sculptor's back. This is one of the better Jace decks out there. So let's get to the list here. Mana base. Okay, so we have a total of 5 Manlands, 3 Mutavaults, and 2 Creeping Tar Pits. Great ways to finish the game. Early on, they still serve their purpose. Mutavault turns into a fairy, so that Spellstutter Sprite counters for an extra ability. Mistbind Clique can be exiled with just 5 land, including a Mutavault. That's really the only application for the main deck, but that is enough, along with attacking through, let's say all your creatures have been killed. Still being able to put pressure on with your mana base is still a big thing. 2 Field of Ruins. I think Field of Ruins is in a great place right now. There's a lot of decks that only run 1 basic land, and, if they ever to draw that, or you draw 2 Field of Ruins, you can just strip mine them. Well, you still get a land. It also helps fix your mana base. I think it is a great addition. 4 Darklit Shores. It's the best deck the best land in the format for you. Not having to deal yourself damage while still having a blue-black land is very big, because this deck has a high demand. You have a bunch of 1-drop black cards, and then you have Cryptic Command, which is a triple blue card. So your mana base is quite demanding. We got 6 total sack lands, and then 2 watery graves here, and then basics. We'll move on to the spells here. We have a total of 5 hand disruption spells that Shota decided on. And I really like the choice that Shota chose to play way more Inquisitions than Thoughtseize. In the metagame we're currently in right now, dealing yourself damage normally is already kind of rough on a person. But with a deck where your main win condition, Bitter Blossom, already deals you damage, you can't be getting too carried away with Thoughtseize, Bitter Blossom. You're already down to 15 after 1 activation of Bitter Blossom with that. And that's to say that you had perfect mana and didn't need to use a sackland fetch. You know, like, this deck can hurt itself quite fast. So I like that decision on this. I do like 5. 1 opt seemed kind of random to me, but, you know, obviously Shota's ran the numbers when it comes to that, so I'm not going to argue. But it is a nice spell to randomly have your Snapcaster be able to opt and get a card advantage spell when you don't really want to play cards like Time Scour. Opt is your best 1 mana card right now. You could think about Serum Visions, but this deck wants to be doing everything at instant speed, so I think Opt is the perfect card. For Spellstutter Sprite, this deck may not be playing the traditional Faeries like it has in the past in the form of Scion of Una, Sower of Temptations, but Spellstutter Sprite counters so many things in this metagame right now. Like, early on, it counters just basically any single effective threat that you want. When late game, you can be countering up to a Primeval Titan, you know? Bitter Blossom, the heart and soul of Faeries, always has been, and will always continue to be quite terrible against decks like Burn and Hollow One, but other elements of the deck can get you there. 1 Cast Down and 1 Collective Brutality here. Just another way to have a removal spell with a different option here. It seems like Shota has really chosen the toolbox aspect to be much more valuable than one of these removal spells being effectively better. And I like that and I appreciate that because each one of these spells does different things. Opt, Collective Brutality, Cast Down, and Murderous Cut are all one-ofs that you would think, well, maybe we can leave Opt out of that because that's a card advantage spell. But removal in the form of Cast Down, Brutality, and Cut, you would think, well, one of these removal spells has got to be better. In most cases, that would be true. But the fact that you draw a lot of cards with Jace, you see a lot of cards through your deck, these cards get into your graveyard for flashback with Snapcaster Maze, the Toolcraft ability is something that I really like with the deck. Move on to the 3-drops. We got 2 Vendilion Cliques. Always a very powerful fairy. Great at removing... I tend to target myself with Vendilion Clique in this deck more often because you draw a late-game hand disruption spell or maybe a 3rd Bitter Blossom that's not as relevant on the board, but still good at disrupting a combo deck, a Tron deck, anything that really needs a density of a certain thing to be functional. When you can strip away something like that, Vendilion Clique becomes very good. Liliana the Last Hope, a very good planeswalker and a kill condition in itself. Being able to tick up and kill different humans or any other creature, slow down your opponent, or bring back a Snapcaster Mage or a Spellstutter Sprite to renew your counters, along with the obvious bring it up to ultimate and win you the game. Liliana does also have a nice piece of interaction where you can animate Mutavault with the emblem trigger on the stack and get an extra zombie. Usually you're going to win regardless at that point, but it is a cute interaction. For Cryptic Command, probably historically the best counter spell next to Force of Will ever printed. It's one of the most obvious inclusions. Bitter Blossom brings a lot of board states where you can either be chump blocking to stay alive, but then you're not in a winning state, or you can be making Bitter Blossom tokens, attacking as much as possible, and Cryptic tapping their team down to really tempo them out. And Faeries has always historically been a tempo deck, and without Cryptic Command, it wouldn't be so. So Cryptic Command really gives that element of tempo to a blue-black fairy list. 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor. It may not be the best planeswalker in Modern, which we've seen Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, be much more popular, but this is an archetype that does not want to splash white, even a little bit. So Jace the Mind Sculptor is going to be the #1 choice here, and for rightfully so. It still got banned for a reason. The card is still messed up good. 2 Mistbind Cliques, another way to be a little tricky while putting a big body on the field. We got that 1 Murderous Cut I mentioned before. We'll move on to the sideboard. We got that 3rd copy of Jace for any kind of control matchup, any kind of more grindy matchup where you really want the powerful planeswalker. Disdainful Stroke, anything 4 mana or greater, self-explanatory, I know, but you really have to judge when you want this. Great against Tron. Speaking of Tron, Ceremonious Rejection, a great card against Tron. You know, any kind of colorless spell as well, but mainly this is for Tron. Grave Titan, anytime you play against like Burn or something where you effectively want to slam this and end the game quickly, you want to side in this powerful creature. 2 Damnations. We got a second Liliana Last Hope against humans, elves, any kind of strategy where you want to slow down their creatures. 2 Collective Brutalities, very good against a wide variety of stuff. Could be great against Storm, just as a duress factor. Phenomenal against Burn, phenomenal against any Collective Company deck. A second copy of Cast Down when you just need to deal with another creature. Good against Hollow One, it kills everything there. Dealing with Grammatic Anglers, Death Shadows, Tassigers, Hollow Ones. Any big threat that your Fatal Pushes doesn't kill. Surgical Extraction, Dredge, Snapcaster decks, you know, Hollow One trying to get Blood Gas. Very versatile card here. Nil Spellbomb, another graveyard card here. And then 2 EEs here. Any kind of super aggressive deck, Affinity. Didn't want to lose to these decks, so I decided to add an extra one where Shota actually played a Batterskull as one of the copies. I noticed it's going to make my mono red matchup slightly worse, but that deck is not that popular right now, so I decided to switch to something that might deal with Affinity or popular aggro strategies along that lines, including Lantern, KCI. Really has more implications than I feel that Batterskull does. Granted, I should never disagree with Shota Yasoka because he is a phenomenal player, and I look up to that man very much for advice, deck building, play style, you name it, he's done it. But in this scenario, I think a second explosive might be better. So stay tuned and let's start putting 1/1 Faeries into play and losing a life. Alright, and welcome to the games here. Alright, I could not be more excited to cast some Faeries. I would like to play first. Okay, I think this hand is fine. Doesn't have the Bitter Blossom, so that's obviously a problem, but does have the Inquisition. So part of me really wants to just Inquisition right away because there's so many ways that decks can have a powerful turn 1 play, like an Aether Vial, Burning Inquiry, really so much. And it looks like we're up against Tron here. And their hand is not specifically great. We definitely don't want these Kolaghan's returns into the graveyard, so it's between Sylvan Scrying and Ballista. I want to side towards Sylvan Scrying just in case they top deck a Sphere and they can't find Tron. So we'll do that, and we want to try to take over the game with Jace here. Green-red Tron, it looks like. Urza's Power Plant is the turn 1 play. Another Inquisition. Now I think we'll still fire that off. Take that Ballista if we have to. Wormcoil Engine was the top decked card. So we'll take that. And then we'll play a Creeping Tar Pit. Now we're just deathly afraid of our opponent drawing naturally an Urza Mine because our hand is not equipped to beat it right now. But that would be quite lucky of our opponent. Alright, we're going to play this, take 2, just in case our opponent draws a land and plays Wormcoil Engine. Very unlikely scenario that that happens, but that 2 damage is very unlikely to actually matter. Alright, our opponent draws a redundant copy here, so now we get to get Jace online. And with Jace being online, what we're doing right now is Fate Sealing. Urza Mine is what we're afraid of, and we're going to try to make sure our opponent does not draw that. So Fate Seal coming in. Oblivion Stone. Oblivion Stone is not exactly what we want to see, but it's not a Tron piece. So I think we maybe should be giving this to our opponent. It's a tricky one. Yeah, we're just going to give this to our opponent. Especially if our opponent doesn't have a 3rd land. Them just playing an Oblivion Stone is not that scary for us. Looks like to be the case. Okay. Since we have a Cryptic Mana, I think we just Fate Seal again. I think we try to end this game via Fate Seal. We know our opponent's hand, and we're okay with our opponent having a worm coil for sure. So with that being the case, we know our opponent's not going to play anything very threatening right now. So I think we are just going to attack for 3 here. We'll let our opponent go because our opponent's going to be playing a worm coil and just drawing a worm coil and saying go. We'll Fate Seal one more time. Grove of the Burn Willows. That's a card I want my opponent to have less of. So we are going to put this at the bottom. And then we're going to say go. We want to leave counter magic open just in case our opponent gets lucky and hits Tron here. Not the case. All right. We're going to Fate Seal again. Our opponent does have a mystery card, but it's unlikely to matter. So a redundant Urza Tower actually doesn't do anything right now, so we are going to give that to our opponent because it's not a Tron land. So now we can for sure attack with a Mutavault. Now that our opponent's drawing Urza Tower, though, we want to be able to shut down the possibility that our opponent can Oblivion Stone us. So we are going to Cryptic Command here, bouncing it. Just so if we have to give our opponent a redundant land here, we can do so, and then we are not worried about them blowing up an Oblivion Stone as well. And our opponent has to discard. Likely a Kozilek's return, yep. Bitter Blossom doesn't really matter because we're 1 turn away from ultimating Jace. We're going to give our opponent Karn. We're going to play Bitter Blossom. We're going to attack with a Mutavault. And then our opponent's going to draw a card and then concede the game because they just drew a Karn. All right. Okay, Tron I don't know if necessarily a great matchup, but it worked out that time. We're going to hope it works the rest. So Ceremonious Rejections are a big reason, or a big card against them. I think we just want to play Planeswalkers, Hand Disruption, excuse me, and then just back them up with Disruption to win the game. Cast Down could be okay. If our opponent, Disdainful Stroke is good. If our opponent plays something like Thought-Knot Seer, otherwise it's quite bad. But there are plenty of lists that play Thought-Knot Seer. So maybe we'll go... Maybe we'll go 1 Grave Titan, 1 Liliana, 1 Cast Down, 1 Disdainful Stroke. Like Shota would have liked. A little bit of the toolbox package. I feel like that is exactly what this deck should be, and that's what I'm going to make sure it is. Alright, so on the draw, we have a Bitter Blossom. It is quite low impact against an active Tron draw, but we do have to keep this. I think this hand kind of screams out, we hope our opponent misses a little bit on Tron or has an awkward draw. Okay, Forest is a great start for us. Expedition maps. We know our opponent's turn is going to look like just sack the map. So we're going to just say go with an opt here. Yeah, Tron, and then say go with map. All right, we're going to opt. Jace the Mind Sculptor. It is a card we want, But I don't know if it's a card we want right now. I think we really want cards like Field of Ruin and stuff, so we're going to put this on the bottom for now. Inquisition is not bad. Ceremonious Rejection is very good right now. So I think our play now is Inquisition, leaving open Ceremonious Rejection, and maybe be able to strip away our opponent's hand of some kind of piece. Looks to be the case. If we take Ancient Stirrings here and our opponent tries to play a map, we could Ceremonious Rejection that. Our opponent does have 3 1-drops. Now our goal number 1 is to keep our opponent off Tron, and if that is the case, we should be taking Ancient Stirrings and counter the map, which I think is what we're going to do. If our opponent didn't have green, this would be a much different decision, but that is not the case. So now we have Ceremonious Rejection for that map. After our opponent goes and gets another Tron piece with this map. Living life on the edge. Okay, sacks for, I'm guessing, a power plant. Yep. Opponent is going to play a power plant and start casting 1-drops. Expedition map. We're going to reject that. Alright, a sphere. Might be sacked immediately. It's not the case. Alright. Now, we're faced with a dilemma if we play Bitter Blossom or if we hold up Snapcaster plus Rejection. And I think the choice is to just play a land and say go right now. Tapping out for a Bitter Blossom and losing to a Giant Walking Ballista or something would be silly. Alright. Chromatic Star. I think we want to counter any 1-drop we can with the Spellstutter Sprite, so I'm going to do so. Plays an Oblivion Stone. Okay, so our opponent has Walking Ballista and 1 other card. I think this leaves us with a good Mistbind Clique turn next turn. Just a little time walk that also forces our opponent's hand. Try to get a little aggressive on this. Opponent could have Dismember here as that second card, but that's not a huge deal to us right now. Alright, looks like we're going to be able to champion this. Tap all of our opponent's lands. Oh, that feels good to do. That feels good to do again. It's been a while. In the past, it was tapping a lot of Vivid lands. And it was tapping a lot of blue-white lands for Revelark. Some Elves, but that wasn't the best matchup from what I remember. Oh, oops, this is waiting on me. Forgot I have to target. It's been that long. Alright, our opponent says go. Alright, Mutavault is an interesting draw here. This allows us to play Bitter Blossom if we would like, and have Snapcaster plus Ceremonious open, but we don't want to just walk into the Oblivion Stone, so we're just going to say, or attack and say go. Now we're once again just trying to stop our opponent from getting Tron. And right here, we're faced with an interesting dilemma here. There's a nice play right now. We can bounce Cryptic, or we can Cryptic Command bounce Misbind Clique, countering it with the Spellstutter Sprite, drawing a card, and then time walking our opponent next turn. It is very likely that our opponent drew Chromatic Sphere, otherwise they would have played it last turn. So I'm very inclined to do this. I'm going to. If he's baiting the Tron land, we're going to feel a little stupid, but... Alright, Cryptic Command, bouncing Misbind Clique, drawing a card. Alright, our champion of a fairy comes back and counters the sphere. And it looks like we might have a Walking Ballista for one. Something we're also not afraid of. Because we do have that Mutavault. Another Chromatic Sphere. Okay, so we know our opponent. We know nothing about our opponent's hand. So we are going to attack. And now, I think we're going to just Misbind Clique again here. If we Misbind Clique again, our opponent can add a counter, shoot the sprite, and then we animate the Mutavault and use it that way. And I think that's fine with me. Alright, upkeep. Gonna do exactly that play. Misbind Clique coming back down. Alright, we're gonna animate Mutavault here. Alright, champion away a Mutavault and tap your lands. Alright, everything worked there. Okay, our opponent drew a land, but not the correct Tron land, so that's always good. But this does mean our opponent does have access to activating Oblivion Stone now, so we don't want to commit anything else to the board, so we're just going to attack and pass. Alright, we're still afraid of naturally drawing Tron, but we can control it otherwise. I would not be surprised to just see an opponent pass here. Alright, we drew a Vendilion Clique. Now we're going to attack with Misbind Clique, see what our opponent does. Takes the 4. Interesting, okay. Expects us to commit something else. We are not going to do so. Alright. Decides to blow it up now. We're going to let this happen. We're going to get our Mutavault back. Our opponent's going to draw a card off the star. And then we have no play but to let our opponent untap and do what they can. We got some counter spells here. Alright, that's the perfect card right now because we can Spellstutter that. And now we still have Snapcaster Ceremonious. A map. Map is scary as well. So I think this is the Ceremonious turn. Our opponent is at 6 life, so we can threaten lethal here quite rapidly by keeping our opponent off Tron. Yep, looks like that's going to bring the game to a conclusion. Alright, Blue-Black Faeries takes down the enemy, Mono-Green Tron. Stay tuned for the rest of the matches. And we're back for round 2 here. Okay, we got a passable hand. It definitely doesn't contain a lot of our powerful spells. But it does contain early interaction, which is the main thing we need here. A forest. Maybe we're not playing against Tron. Ooh. Utopia Sprawl. So we could be some, like, Ponza deck, the LD deck. That could be a possibility. In that case, we should play Polluted Delta right away, because that is a card that cannot get strip landed away from us. Cannot get stone rained, I should say, would be the correct way to say that. Alright, yeah. I can't really picture it being any deck other than Ponza right now. No land. Okay. Okay. Well, in that case, we are for sure going to sack this. We're going to get a blue-black land. And we're going to opt. Inquisition. Now, I think this is worth casting. Stealing a stone rain in case our opponent has that seems valuable. We'll keep this on top. We'll draw that. See what we draw for our turn. No land, though. What kind of hand could our opponent keep with only that land? Okay, so we're going to Inquisition, and we're going to find out. All right. Inquisition. All right. Does indeed reveal the deck that we thought. Now, we don't care too much about any of these cards except the one and powerful Blood Moon. Blood Moon is a very scary card right now. Yeah, it just has to be Blood Moon. Okay. We'll play a Tar Pit and pass the turn. Now, we really want to fade here one more time, because even that Stone Rain right now is quite bad for us. Tireless Tracker is not the biggest deal right now, but, ooh, our opponent missed again. That's lucky for us. Okay, now, I guess Ponza's got to risk it when they have it. So now we have the Murderous Cut for one of the trackers, and we have a Fatal Push as well. But we have no way to get a permanent to the graveyard. So right now, we're still vulnerable to Stone Rain, surprisingly. This should be a matchup that is very good for us, considering the fact that when we land a Bitter Blossom, everything in our opponent's deck is trying to strip us of lands or strip us of resources, and that is a card who constantly generates resources. So, in hindsight, this could be a good one. All right, Cast Down is the draw. That deals with the other Tireless Tracker. We're gonna play Mutavault and pass the turn. Now, we still can't really do anything about Stone Rain, and Stone Rain still kind of hurts us, which is unfortunate, because that's usually the play people start with. Here's the max punishment for keeping a hand like that. If only we could deal with Utopia Sprawl. Okay, so we're going to say go. Our opponent likely might Lightning Bolt us here. Actually, we can return this forest to our opponent's hand at upkeep. Ooh, I like this. That's spicy. Return the forest so the Utopia Sprawl turns off, so we're stripping a land of our opponent. And if they top deck a land, it is now stripped from them as well. And our opponent moves to discard here. Discards an Inferno Titan that we did not know about. Alright, we'll play a Scalding Tarn. Now, since our opponent can only have access to 2 mana next turn, it's a safe Mutavault attack. Because next turn, we're either going to want to cast Vendilion Clique or counter our opponent's 1 or 2 drop with Spellstutter Sprite. Our opponent is going to have a Lightning Bolt available. We're going to get this Watery Grave because we don't care about our life right now that much. And we're going to Vendilion Clique ourselves. We know what our opponent's hand is, basically. Yeah, our opponent's just going to scoop it up there. Writing is on the wall. Opponent kept a loose hand there, but, you know, what can you do? Okay, when it comes to Stone Rain decks, Some of the most important things you can do is have a resolved Jace against those type of strategies. Big spells like this are not usually good. Fatal pushes are very questionable. Alright, Brutality we're for sure going to take out. Vendilion Clique I don't like very much as well, but some of this top end I also don't like. Mistbind Clique I think is bad. We would rather have Liliana, something that's cheap and effective. Cast down to deal with Tireless Tracker. I kind of like this configuration. I feel like this is a few too many fatal pushes. Granted, I do want to deal with Tireless Trackers and Bloodbraid Elves. But this might be a little extreme. But I really want as much cheap interaction as possible. And to win the game with Bitter Blossom here. So we're going to keep it this way. So we do have Bitter Blossom. That is the important factor here. And we do have a very important Sackland. Being able to play a Sackland turn 1 and let that avoid Stone Rain possibilities is very important. Utopia Sprawl for red. So turn 2 Stone Rain is very possible. So we're going to make it impossible. The fact that that's not on a basic land makes it a little less convenient for us. And now if our opponent decides to take the high road and play a Tireless Tracker instead, at least we still have the answer for that. So we have the answer to Stone Rain and Tireless Tracker right now. Utopia Sprawl number 2, okay. This could also still be a Tireless Tracker. Blood Moon. That's unfortunate. Can't really do anything about Blood Moon right now except get a basic island and hope that that is enough. But yeah, that is going to be very effective against us. Nothing we can do but hope our opponent plays a 1-drop. This game could easily end quickly. Not much you can do against a turn 2 Blood Moon unless I had the Hand Disruption spell. Unfortunately, I drew Thoughtseize a turn too late. Looks like a Bloodbraid Elf. Hopefully it goes into a 1-drop. Anger of the Gods is at least just as bad. Bloodbraid hits the field and will attack us. I don't see a reason to not play this Spellstutter Sprite, even though it's quite bad. I think we'll still play it. All the Hand Disruption spells coming a little too late will attack, and then we'll be resorted to losing the game. If we could have got a Swamp, it would be a lot different. Now, second Bloodbraid to get a Molten Rain, taking down our island. That should be the game right there. Yep. That'll do. Not much you can do against that draw. Unless we had a turn 1 Hand Disruption. I really don't like any changes here, so we'll just run it back. Being on the play is a big advantage here, especially with Bitter Blossom. If we had a Bitter Blossom on 2 there, we would have been fine. But having no lands on 1 is not fine, so we will mulligan. Okay, we got Hand Disruption spells. Our hand may not be great, but it's definitely a keeper. We get to scry at least. Now, cards we're really looking for here are Jace the Mind Sculptor and Bitter Blossom. Bitter Blossom being the #1 card because we really want it to be our follow-up. But Jace is still completely fine, and we should be able to strip our opponent's hand of at least of their nut draw immediately. So we're going to keep. An island is not what we want. So we're going to put that on the bottom. And Inquisition of Kozilek our opponent. Now we're looking to get value out of our Spellstutter Sprite as well, but it's gonna be a little tough, I have a feeling. Okay, so our opponent has no access to red if we take this Utopia Sprawl. So this is a very obvious Utopia Sprawl to me. So we're gonna take that. Hope our opponent doesn't draw a Utopia Sprawl right off the top, because that would be pretty rough for our hand. Our opponent only has basics, so our Field of Ruins are going to be not very relevant right now. But our opponent's hand is unplayable without a little help. Okay, Darklit Shores is not great. But we are going to play it and say go. Just hoping that maybe we get value from our Spellstutter Sprite. We can always Thoughtseize next turn. The main card we need to take here is Tron at some point. Alright, our opponent gets red, so that is brutal. Now, Spellstutter Sprite is not going to counter much. So we have the dilemma between actually getting an attack on or holding it. And right now, I don't think Spellstutter Sprite's offense is going to win us the game. So we're going to Thoughtseize and see where that gets us. Alright, now our opponent has multiple threats that are troubling to us. Tireless Tracker we have no answer for right now. Tron is also pretty much unbeatable. So this is a tough choice. I think it's Tron or Tireless Tracker because the other spells are uncastable, though still relevant. I think we have to take Tireless Tracker and hope to get lucky with Tron, but it easily could be the other way around. Because we have plenty of ways to deal with Tireless Tracker, but we have almost 0 ways to deal with Tron. So we are going to take Tron. You know, I mean, we're in a rough spot here because Tireless Tracker is going to resolve next turn. And we don't have an answer for it, so that is a bit of a problem. All the Forest Route, Chandra. Alright, our opponent's hand is Molten Rain, Anger, and a Chandra that we know about. We proceed to draw a land, which is unfortunate. We're just going to play a Field of Ruins, say go. Offer the block with a Creeping Tar Pit. That's really all we can do. A land. Sacking that to Tracker makes that play not as good. Our opponent chooses to attack, so maybe they had an oversight where this Creeping Tar Pit will actually deal with it, or they top deck Lightning Bolt. Top deck Lightning Bolt. Cryptic Command. And we know 3 of the cards in our opponent's hand. Yep, we're just going to go land, go. Hope to Cryptic and draw here. Or bounce Tireless Tracker. Our opponent is going off with Tireless Tracker. Yep, we have to take this. Alright, now we're left with having to Cryptic Command bounce and draw a card here. Not ideal, but things have not went well for us this game. Alright, Jace the Mind Sculptor is a real Magic card, so we're in business. Jace. Need to brainstorm because our hand is quite bad. We really don't want this Darklit Shores here. We don't want this island that much, but the Mutavault is one land we want. So now we just kind of hope our opponent didn't draw out of it too well. I believe Mountain and Chandra would be quite terrible for us. A Bloodbraid Elf would be quite bad as well. Oh, that's too bad. Alright, dealing with Jace there. One positive note here is we do have a way to deal with Tireless Tracker coming back down. Yep, but we cannot feel the ruins this turn. And we're getting to such a low life total that it almost doesn't matter. We're almost dead regardless. But, yeah, once you get behind, it gets a lot tougher here. Alright, so here we're going to animate Mutavault. And then Spellstutter Sprite this. Now at least we have some blockers here. Untap and our opponent can drop a bomb. Yep, Chandra. Nothing we can do about that. We can block this. There's no way we're beating Chandra anyways, so we might as well block. It's literally just pretty impossible. This deck doesn't play from behind very well. So unfortunately, that'll be it. Okay, well, stay tuned for a third and final round. Hopefully we can get at least a 2-1 out of this. And welcome back to our third and final round here. Okay, so to recap, we beat Tron round 1, and then we lost to Ponza round 2. So let's see if we can get a little redemption for our third match. And this hand is nice, you know. I mean, we have our turn 1 Inquisition. We got Bitter Blossom to follow it up. You can't really ask for anything more, so we're going to keep this. Oliver Hart, I have definitely played against this person before. It's a good player. Steam Vents, that gives us hope that this is finally a matchup that's going to be good for us. I don't think necessarily Ponza or Tron were supposed to be good matchups for us. They just happened to turn out okay. So there's a debate between Delta or Watery Grave as our first turn. I don't think it matters too much besides thinning our deck. And likely we're playing against a control deck where our life total doesn't matter very much. We're going to get Watery Grove to start, or Watery Grave to start, excuse me. All right, blue, red. Okay. So one thing in the ice, we actually don't care about that card at all. So I think we just take a Snapcaster here. I guess. This hand is great for us. A turn 2 Bitter Blossom resolving for us is going to be detrimental to our opponent's strategy. So we're going to get rid of Snapcaster because we actually don't care about a Braid either. Now what we're really afraid of is our opponent goes just Island Go. That's not the case. Alright, we got a Thoughtseize. Still, there's no real choice. We are going to play a Bitter Blossom. Might as well get a land out of our deck first. Alright, we'll say go here. This is going to be a very good card for us. Alright, opponent plays that other land and a second Thing in the Ice. This could get a little scary. Now we have hand disruption spells, so we're going to Inquisition. A Braid, Flame Slash, and Snapcaster. Okay, Snapcaster is the card we're most afraid of, but we're really not too afraid of our opponent's hand right now. So we're going to take Snapcaster and leave our opponent with 2 creature removal cards against a Bitter Blossom. Usually not great, and in this case it remains the same. So we're just going to play Watery Grave tapped because we don't want to necessarily cast anything next turn, and we want to preserve our life total a little bit. Now next turn we can Thoughtseize and still get both of the targets. Sleight of Hand will show our opponent a little bit more options. So we do got to be wary of these things. We don't want to deal with a 9-7. So our opponent chose Opt, is choosing to play an Opt. Plays a land, so we know the 2 cards in our opponent's hand. So we really want to make sure we can deal with these two creatures. So we're going to play a Delta here. And our opponent can flip both of them with the cards in hand. So we really do got to Thoughtseize away one of them. And I think the most obvious is Flame Slash because it just costs less. So we're going to get rid of that. And we are going to Fatal Push one of these. So they do flip. And they do not bounce each other. So, worst case scenario, we only have to deal with 197. So I have to do it now. We're actually put in a bit of a rough spot here. If our opponent top decks a spell. We really need to untap to have Cryptic Command to deal with that. Otherwise, our opponent can flip this and make a 9-7. And if our opponent attacks for, or 7-8, excuse me. And if our opponent attacks for 7, that's 5 Bitter Blossom activations, which gets to... Ooh. Looks like our opponent does have the action. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to abrade right now. Yep. Those are ways to make that flip. Unfortunately, that resolves. So our opponent still has an abrade and a mystery card in hand. Yep, now we're left with a very short clock. Luckily, we drew an answer for this, but at some point you got to think maybe it's just too late. We might be left with Cryptic Commanding our Bitter Blossom just to survive. Jace the Mind Sculptor hits the play. It's going to be a bit of a problem. Our opponent gets to put a Braid back. It'd be very likely that a Braid is going to the bottom of the library because it's quite a pointless card right now. So we get a land where Cryptic Command is active. So we'll attack Jace. And this is going to leave our opponent having to tick up or lose Jace. So I guess there's that. But Bitter Blossom is still going to kill us here. Opponent takes 2. Thing in the Ice. We can't really let another one of those resolve. So we are going to counter this. And now it comes to the point, do we counter and bounce or counter and draw? And I think we counter and draw. We're not going to win by just bouncing our Bitter Blossom and win off these 2 tokens. So we need something else like a Mistbind Clique or something. But in hindsight, we are in trouble. Alright. Electrolyze will just kill us no matter what. Okay. Awoken Horror takes the win. Blue-red. Alright, alright. I thought with the look of our opponent's hand, we had nothing to worry about. But I guess in hindsight, we really should have taken Thing of the Ice. But our opponent drew a second Thing in the Ice. So I think we were correct if our opponent didn't draw a second one. But in hindsight, we definitely should have just taken it. Alright, blue-red. Likely Blood Moons we'll have to deal with. Thing in the Ice might be something they take out. Liliana could be very good. I think Jace would be good. Another Planeswalker. Fatal Push kills every creature possible, so I think that is enough. We still need to keep it in for Thing in the Ice, though. We could bring in something like Disdainful Stroke for Cryptic Commands, but that seems a little too situational for me. I think in this case we just want one beast here. I really like this. 4 Fatal Push might seem extreme, but we don't want to lose to Thing in the Ice. And all our hand disruption might seem like a lot, but we don't want to lose to Blood Moon. We have to be open to what our opponent's going to do, and I think this is the best way to have a plan against whatever our opponent could throw at us here. This strategy still has great game against a control aspect in the form of Bitter Blossom and hand disruption. Yeah, I think this hand is fine. We got some hand disruption, see what our opponent's doing. It's missing a Bitter Blossom. That is exactly what we would need. But we are going to see what we're up against and see what we have to play around. Our opponent kept a 1-lander. With our opponent keeping a 1-lander, I think there is a high chance that we just take sleight of hand.
As hospitals evolve into integrated, complex healthcare organizations, it's easy for patients to feel anxious about their care.
Sorry, my Twitch chat just started volume all of a sudden. Okay, so back to this. What do we want to take? I'm thinking just sleight of hand. Our opponent is really in rough shape if this sleight of hand doesn't resolve, so we're going to take the high risk, high reward plan here and just take that. Polluted Delta says go. Alright, now we're left with playing a Mutavault. And then our decision is leave open Spellstutter Sprite or Thoughtseize and try to stop our opponent from doing something. And I think at this point, we want to just hold open just in case our opponent draws a 1-drop. If our opponent draws that second land, there's not much we can do anyways. And there's nothing we actually really want to take out of our hand. Take out of their hand for their turn 2 play. So we'll just let that happen. Our opponent did draw land. Unfortunate for us. So now our opponent is live with Remand and Negate. And with that being the case, we can't really do anything. We just have to say go. It's unfortunate, but our hand is frozen just as much as theirs is. Unless they draw enough lands to get out of the situation, which they happen to do. So now we still can't do much. We're left reacting to our opponent, which is usually not what we want to be doing, but here we actually have a play. We can Thoughtseize, because if our opponent negates, we can counter it with Spellstutter Sprite. Okay, so we are going to go for this. And realistically, what we have to counter, or what we have to take from their hand, is it Static Caster? That's a tongue twister. Okay. So our opponent has a 4th land for Jace, though. That is a big problem. I think Jace is a bigger threat right now, so we do have to actually take that. Can't really beat a Resolve Jace. Staticaster deals with our Spellstutter Sprite 1 turn. Big deal. Likely that our opponent just plays it right now. But I could also see a case for our opponent holding open reactive spells. It's going to be an interesting game from here on, because both of us have ways to deal with the opponent. So actually we have to react to each other. Okay, our opponent played the Polluted Delta. Now we actually don't have Cryptic Command mana available. So I think there is some consideration to activating a Field of Ruins. We're going to start by attacking. Now we have the option between Snapcastering and playing a hand disruption spell and then fatal pushing a static caster is how things would work. We would get to take our opponent's Snapcaster, but we would lose our Snapcaster and our opponent would lose their Izzet static caster and we would lose our fatal push. So are we willing to trade Snapcaster, fatal push, plus a card in our graveyard for their Snapcaster? Is it static caster? And we'd be left with only Cryptic Command and our opponent would be left with only Remand and a mystery card. That is the dilemma we're put with. That's the scenario that would happen if we decide to go for Snapcaster. And I think at this point, that is not worth it, so we're just going to pass the turn. Now we're going to let this resolve. Going to kill that, and we get to fatal push this. Okay. Now our opponent has Snapcaster and Remand that we know of. Opponent says go. We are going to Field of Ruins so we can get our third blue source so we can actually have Cryptic Command mana. Floating a red mana, likely to be floating it for nothing, but you never know. Okay. Now, Inquisition. I think this is a good card here. Force our opponent's hand. Okay, our opponent's hand is stacked. Alright, that is a good hand. What can we do to it here? I don't think it's Remand. I think we either take Static Caster or one of the Snapcaster mages. I think it's best to just take a Snapcaster here. And then we'll wait for our opponent's turn where they more than likely will go for a Static Caster. And then I think we really want a Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command is not that great right now. Yeah, we kind of wished our opponent went for it. It's going to be a lot of draw go from here. Inquisition again. Well, I think it's the same play. Now, we actually don't want our opponent to Snapcaster right now. If our opponent's Snapcaster is on a Remand, or Snapcaster is on a negate, that actually... Yeah, we'll see what our opponent does here. Okay, so now our opponent has a remand available as well. So we don't really want to Cryptic Command it, because our opponent could just remand their own Snapcaster. So we have to let that resolve. Opponent chooses negate. And now we have an option. We can counter this and draw a card, and we get to Inquisition their hand. Or we can just Snapcaster and Inquisition ourselves, but that seems much worse. We're just going to counter draw, because Cryptic Command is not that good right now, and we want to get our value out of it. We drew Bitter Blossom, which is huge. So with Bitter Blossom being the draw, we really got to get rid of Static Caster. Static Caster is a big problem to Bitter Blossom. So our opponent's left with Remand and Lightning Bolt here. And those cards are not a big deal right now. Our opponent draws and plays a Serum Vision. I guess we're kind of afraid of a Blood Moon, but not super afraid of it. We have two great cards in hand. Alright, our opponent has put two cards on top. That's scary. Well, I don't think we really have a choice but to play a Bitter Blossom here. Hope it resolves. If not, we got a second one, so we're not insanely mad if it doesn't resolve. Okay. Now I think we may just want to cast a second one here. It's putting our life total on a strain here, but there is a world where we want to Snapcaster and Inquisition our opponent. But if we do that, more than likely the remand is going to hit our Inquisition and our opponent is going to get to draw a card. So we're just going to play a second Bitter Blossom. It's risky here, I'm not going to lie, but I think it's correct. Yep. Eat up the remand. That's fine. Our opponent only has Lightning Bolt that we know about. Ooh. Pia and Kieran Nillar. That's a problem. Okay. Jace is a great card right now. Jace is for sure a good card. But how good is the question? I think we just play it and brainstorm. We really don't want some of these cards in our hand. And we're gonna get rid of these two cards with the Sackland. And I hope this Spellstutter Sprite actually gets to counter something, but there's definitely no guarantee. Ooh, okay, that's enough. We were taking anything here, so. Our opponent's other card in hand is only a Lightning Bolt, so so we're not going to get much value before our opponent attacked. So that is what we wanted to do. Maybe this protects Jace, although our opponent does have Lightning Bolt to just kill it at any point. But it still would have soaked up some damage and hopefully stabilized a little bit for us. Everything at us. Now, if we double block Pia and Kieran Nillar, we would take 4. Lightning Bolt could make us take 7, and we'd be down to 5. I think that's okay. Yeah, we got to get that card off the board. That card is very scary. Our opponent has plenty of ways to interact with this play. Can either sack an artifact to keep Piankiran Nalaar alive, or can Lightning Bolt it. Either or we're okay with, because that is much less damage that's being directed at us. Lightning Bolt takes that down. Our opponent's choosing to take the slow route to win. Alright, Cryptic Command. Opponent has 1 card. So likely this Snapcaster Mage is going to want to hit a Fatal Push here. But for now we just say go. Alright, attacking with everything. So we're going to animate this Mutavault. Alright, that deals with our Mutavault. Going to play Snapcaster. I guess we should have tapped our Mutavault there. But we are going to use this Fatal Push to kill Piankiran Nalaar. And I believe that was a remand. Yep, remand on that. Which it wouldn't have mattered if we would have tapped that, but that's okay. We get to deal with both of these creatures and untap on an empty board with a Bitter Blossom. So that's nice. We do still have Bitter Blossom to worry about from just straight killing us. So we're going to start with an Opt. Liliana. That's an interesting one, because we have Snapcasters in the graveyard. So I think we keep this. I think we keep this, and we're just going to play it and tick up. It's a play that can be taken advantage by a lot of plays, but I think we have to be a little aggressive here. And hope our opponent necessarily doesn't have too much so that we can kind of take over the game with this. Fatal Push is the draw. I think we're going to bring back a Snapcaster right now. We're going to attack for 1. We have to be very wary of what our opponent can have, because we can just be dead to Bolt at this point. Okay, our opponent just says go without a land drop. That's pretty terrifying. Opponent did play a land. That makes you a little more on ease. At this point, we're going to just try to get aggressive here. We're going to play Snapcaster. Remand. Okay. We're going to try again. We're not at the point quite yet where we have to bounce Bitter Blossom. There will be a time where we definitely do. All right, another remand will force us to untap. Fall to 5. All right, we're going to attack a couple of Faeries. All right, we'll tick up on this. Creeping Tar Pit and pass the turn. Alright, we're scared of a lot of things right now. Not a Serum Vision yet. Steam Vent tap. That's our opponent put one on top, one on bottom with the Serum Visions. Alright, so now we are going to try the same play here. Alright, and we are going to opt. Cast it. Bitter Blossom for sure to the bottom. Okay, that doesn't net us anything great. Alright, now we are going to down tick for a Spellstutter Sprite. Ooh, Vendilion Clique. That's a card we really want to deal with our own Bitter Blossom. And a Snapcaster. We really got options for this. Ooh. Well, both are great options. I think Snapcaster is actually best. Because now really all we need to do is get this Bitter Blossom off the table before we get to 3. And that is the card that is the easiest to do that thing. So we're going to attack. We're starting to get a heavy onslaught in. All right. Our opponent untaps. We're going to let all this happen. Sleight of hand. Yep, we'll let that resolve. Now we do not want to hit 3 life with this Bitter Blossom, so our main goal is to get that off the table. And that's going to be ideally with Snapcaster, Cryptic Command. But we're going to play Snapcaster, and if that doesn't work, then play the Cryptic Command. So our opponent played a Scalding Tarn. Alright, so now we're going to cast a Snapcaster, see how this works. Okay, don't necessarily like that this just easily resolved. Maybe we should have tried to counter and bounce that sleight of hand. It's a tough one because our opponent could have just went Static Caster and then killed us. So I think it's correct, but those 2 cards can be a lot of scary different developments right now. I think we lose the game to counter Bolt no matter what. So I think we have to ignore that. But like just Cryptic Command, not that big of a deal. Just Bolt, not that big of a deal. But both together would be a problem. Opponent is electrolyzing me. Well, I don't think it would be terrible to counter bounce right now. Counter, return Bitter Blossom. Right now, all we need to do is just untap. So if we can do that, we win the game. And I think with how the way that works, we do. Okay, well, now it comes down to what our opponent draws. If our opponent draws a Lightning Bolt or something, we lose. Or another Electrolyze. The way our opponent sacked that land so fast, I'm pretty sure we're dead. Drew an Electrolyze. I guess, is there a way we could have prevented that? If our opponent would have electrolyzed us, and then the Cryptic Command, and then the Snapcaster ability goes off, and then we bounce and draw a card, then our opponent just electrolyzes in response. So the only way we actually would have won this game is if we would have targeted Cryptic Command, our opponent electrolyzed, we said okay, and then we just didn't cast Cryptic Command, and then untapped, and then we would have won. But yeah, the way it worked out, that is not how it was. Brutal. Electrolyze, pretty good against Faeries, turns out. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Faeries may have not have treated us as well as it's treated me in the past, but this deck is still super fun. And if Shota can win with it, well, maybe just Shota can win with it. You never know, but the deck is super fun. It's a nice change of pace for Modern, so let me know what you guys think of the deck down in the comments, and if anything, we'll see you next week. Bye.